So at this point, I've already machined one side of the blade. This is the business end of it, you know, with the engraving, and got the bevel on one side. Bevel has not been put onto the other side yet. So I Scotch-Brighted all the burrs off of this side. There's just a little bit of machining burrs on this side, so that when I flip it over it lays flat, because you don't want it up a little bit. Very important. So on this fixture I'm flipping it over, and then I'm clamping it through the pivot. I'm locating on the stop pin and on the tip of the blade here, because these are both precision surfaces that were machined at the same time. Makes it very, very repeatable. So I put in little dowel pins here so that I can locate the blade like that, and then I just have an end mill that goes into this hole and locates the tip of the blade. That gives you 2 points of location. Perfect. So all I have to do is push it up against those two. So I usually do this one first and then rotate it towards the front, and that works great. And then I put the pivot bolt in, cinch it down full tight. And the trick here is, because I've already machined the bevel on one side, and my blades have a corner rounded edge right up here, which is done both on the machine and by hand. I have to be able to hold the blade somehow so that the tool can come in and cut this corner round. So the way I've been doing it so far for 400 plus knives is this little edge clamp, but what that does is it does bend it up. So I have to be very light and very accurate with how I tighten this, so that the edge here doesn't bow up, otherwise the corner rounder goes crooked and undercuts and is terrible. So we've sort of perfected a little method where we hold one end and we tighten with the Allen key until we feel it kind of bulging up, or we look at it or whatever. That just gives us the perfect corner round. And then Eric still has to go through and grind it and contour it and match it, but this saves him a little bit of work and time just by starting the corner round. Doing CNC machining is one set of skills, and there's a lot of variables, a lot of things to learn about that. However, fixturing is a whole new set of skills that one has to learn, mostly by yourself, or if you have a mentor or something, because you can only research so much online, and there are books about fixturing and you should absolutely read them. I haven't yet, but I take a lot of pride in my fixturing, and I really try hard to make the fixture do exactly what I want and have it be totally repeatable, because the fixture is what makes repeatable parts. You know, if you're just making one-offs, then the fixture doesn't matter. You do soft jaws or quick and dirty little things, it doesn't matter. But if you're doing repeatable sort of low volume production or high volume production, the fixtures are very important. So spend a lot of time learning that skill, because it'll really pay off. And now I'm going to mill the corner round, so I'm going to use a 3-flute corner rounder here. And this particular one, it's from Mary Tool. I don't buy a lot of end mills from Mary Tool. I usually use Lakeshore stuff, but this one is just pretty beefy for what it is. It's got a really big tip diameter. Anyway, I really like it, and it's coated, the parts are coated to use this exact end mill, so I just keep using it. So what I do is I machine the first one, and then I pause to see if it undercuts, because if it undercuts, it's a big problem. I don't want it to undercut 12. Now I just got to turn on my vacuum pallet changer. On, not going anywhere. The enclosure is awesome, although for filming, I basically have to wash the windows before every time I want to film through them. But that's the case with any machine. There's that pause. Now we can look at it. Usually I'll blow the coolant off so I can see, but that one looks excellent, that one looks excellent, no undercuts. So there's two kinds of undercuts. You can undercut down, or you can undercut in from the side. And they both suck. The down one is harder because you can't just face the whole thing off to make it flat again. The side one's not so bad because we can just cut that deeper, but gotta be super careful with these. So that looks good, so I'm going to open it up and let it do the whole thing. and they should all work great. So while the machine is running doing that, I'll show the, this is the tool I use to cut the bevels on the knife. You know, blank, and it just goes meh, meh, meh. So it's a button insert cutter, or a toroid cutter. I get these from Tormac. I ended up getting 2 of them because I found out that for my blades, I can get through 6 blades, there's 6 sides before the inserts start to get a little bit dull and they start to leave a little bit worse finish. I could push it to 12, but then the finish gets a bit worse and then we have to sand it and polish it more. So after every 6, I rotate the insert to have a fresh edge. But having 2 now, 2 tools, lets me do 12 blades at one time by switching to the second tool. So what I do is I take a paint marker and I mark out the dull sections. And this one wears out more. This paint seems to work very well. I don't know what the difference is, but so I just mark from 12 o'clock and the little bit of arc that it dulled, and then every time I rotate it, I mark the new section. So eventually it looks like that, and I can tell I still have a quarter rotation left. And I get a good 8 rotations out of every insert. So these are terrific value because the inserts just last forever, as opposed to having to replace an entire length of carbide because it wears out as fast as one little edge does. So insert end mills are amazing for their application. So all of these Damasteel blades are for pre-order knives. These are guys that have ordered over a year ago for these blades. It's really exciting to finally get them off my plate and of course made. It's going to be super sweet to have all of these blades done, especially at one time. It's going to be fun. So for one of them, the customer requested a custom engraving on it. Just a real simple letter N sticking out of the flipper tab right there so that he can look at it and see, oh, it's mine. But it's going to be really cool. And it's a simple engraving, and for simple things I don't mind doing it. I charge a fee, of course, but it's kind of fun. I like doing custom engravings, especially someone's name or something, because that tells me they're pretty much never going to sell that knife or get rid of it. So it's an important purchase for them. And it's always nice to know, for me, that they're not just going to turn around and flip it and try to make some money on it or whatever, but that they're actually going to keep it and maybe even pass it down to their kids or whatever. I get a lot of satisfaction knowing that. So to do a custom engraving, especially just a super simple letter, I wrote the code already inside on SolidWorks and HSMWorks to test it out. Now because the way I'm clamping the blades, they kind of deflect up and bend a little bit, like I was talking about with these clamps, and I'm doing this one. So I don't know if that little corner is lifted up, so when I first engrave it, I want to be very careful and very conservative with how I do it, because I don't want it to be crooked or too deep or whatever. So I started off high, and I did the first cut very high, so it just scratched the surface, which is perfect. Let's blow it off. Yeah, you can just see it right there. So it'll be looking like this. So although that is, come on, that's not bad as it is, I think I want to go 1 thou deeper, maybe even 2 thou deeper, and have it be really, really bold, because I want it to be like my lettering there, you know, and I want it to match the other side of the knife. Nice bold lettering, so that when you etch it, the lettering gets etched too. And there it is. I think that's going to look really good. So from here I switched the clamps. Instead of clamping on the edge here, I clamped to a spine clamp, and I made these custom for the Norseman blade. So they're clamping the flat of the spine against the flat of the spine against the fixture. So it clamps them fairly well. The edge because the other side is already milled, the edge is unsupported. So theoretically this does vibrate and bounce while it's being machined. However, we haven't really found it to be a problem for us. What we could do if we wanted to step up our game once again is to make a new fixture that is recessed to fit the curve and the arc of the underside of that blade. So it's like a little pocket, like a little nest that the blade sits into perfectly. And that way the clamps it securely down, and then any downward machining forces are fully supported underneath. That's a good theory, and we could totally do it one day, and maybe for another model I will do it, although for this it just works. So I'm not going to screw with it if it works great. I don't think doing that would improve this situation much. Yeah, so from here I just get full access to this cutting edge, and the whole run takes almost 2 hours for the bevels on this side using the 2 tools, and I can walk away and trust that it's going to do perfect because it's worked great always. So yeah, I'm gonna go have lunch, gonna go pick up my daughter from school, gonna come back, and it's still not gonna be done. So I'll find something else to do. Actually creates the cutting edge. So this is directly off the machine. I don't think Eric's done much, if any, buffing on it. A little bit of buffing. Yeah, he has. But he hasn't done any grinding on it. So the bevel, the cutting bevel, the secondary edge, or whatever it's called, is machined right off the machine. So this comes down to a 0 point, and it's not razor sharp, but it comes to a point, and it is sharp. And let's see if we can left-handedly. Yeah, that wasn't hard. Yeah, it's just awkward with my left hand here, but it's somewhat sharp. And we have poked ourselves and cut ourselves, and the tip is very pointy. It still has to be sharpened, of course, and I think it takes Eric just as long to sharpen from here as it takes most people to sharpen freehand. But and Eric does sharpen freehand on the grinder. But I just like to know that I can machine the bevel perfectly. I think that's really cool. That's not to say that this is anywhere near done. There's a lot of handwork that Eric puts into these. You know, I machine them, he finishes them, and he puts a lot of sanding and grinding and polishing work into these before they're done. So I'll show you one last thing. There's one stupid air compressor. Anyway, there's one really heavy cut that it does, and it's right now. That's about it. Everything else is just light cuts. So this engraved knife is done now. Turned out very cool. A very subtle N right on the flipper tab. And I didn't realize how neat it would actually be until it's done and I look at it. And every time you put your finger there, you're kind of watching your finger and you see that N. And it's just there, and it's also an N in the open position, which is kind of slick. I didn't realize it would do that. You know, I just didn't think about it. But yeah, this Damasteel turned out really cool. Eric did a really nice deep etch. This is the Hackapella pattern. Loved how that turned out. So yeah, love how this engraving turned out. Thanks for watching. Bye.